Should have just scrolled past. That's what I tell myself every time I replay the moment in my head. A single comment on a random gaming forum thread. 3 sentences, maybe 4. I typed them in under 30 seconds while waiting for my instant noodles to finish cooking, one hand on my phone, thumb moving with the kind of careless speed that comes from years of internet arguments. I didn't think about it. I never did. The thread was about some indie horror game that had just dropped on Steam. Pixel art, retro aesthetic, the kind of thing I usually loved. But the OP, some guy with the username Nidal_97, had posted this long, breathless review about how it was the most psychologically sophisticated piece of interactive fiction ever created, and how the developer was a misunderstood genius operating on a plane of consciousness most gamers couldn't access. I rolled my eyes so hard I nearly pulled a muscle. Bro, it's a 2D pixel game about a haunted vending machine, I typed. Stop deep-throating the developer's artistic vision and touch some grass. This is the most pretentious cringe I've read all week, and I just got back from reading YouTube comments on a Tool music video. I hit send, dropped my phone on the counter, poured boiling water into my cup noodles. 3 minutes later, my phone was vibrating like an angry hornet. 27 notifications. 27. In 3 minutes. I opened the app and my stomach did this weird little flip. Nidal_97 had replied, and his reply had sparked a thread that was now burning through the forum's front page. But it wasn't just him. Other users were piling on, quote-tweeting my comment, screenshotting it, dissecting it like I'd committed some kind of war crime against gaming discourse. And Nidal_97's reply was sitting at the top of it all, pinned by a moderator. Nidal_97 ***, I'd like to understand what specifically you found pretentious about my analysis. I spent 3 weeks writing that review. I researched the developer's previous work, interviewed 2 of the playtesters, and compiled reference materials on the psychological frameworks the game draws from. If you disagree with my conclusions, I'm happy to have a substantive conversation. But if all you have is a drive-by insult wrapped in a meme reference from 2019, I think you should apologize and move on. Apologize. The word sat there on my screen, and I stared at it with something between disbelief and indignation. Apologize? For what? For having an opinion? For not bowing down to some random guy's overblown game review like he'd just handed me the Rosetta Stone of horror gaming? I was 23 years old, working a dead-end IT support job, living alone in a studio apartment that smelled faintly of mildew no matter how many candles I lit. My social life consisted of Discord calls with high school friends I hadn't seen in person since graduation, and my dating life was a graveyard of abandoned Tinder matches. The one thing I had, the one arena where I felt like I had any kind of voice, was online. Gaming forums, Reddit threads, Twitter arguments. These were my territories, my kingdoms of petty opinion. And now some guy named Nidal_97 wanted me to apologize for trespassing on his? Not a chance. I finished my noodles. I opened my laptop. And I wrote back. 0cool_x***, I don't owe you an apology for having a different opinion about a video game. The fact that you spent 3 weeks writing a review doesn't make it immune to criticism. If anything, it makes the pretentiousness worse. You're not a games journalist. You're not an academic. You're a guy on a forum who wrote 5,000 words about why a haunted vending machine is actually a metaphor for late-stage capitalism. It's not that deep. Touch grass. Apology not incoming. I hit send. Leaned back. Felt righteous. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Nidal_97 ***, I notice you didn't engage with a single actual point I made. You're not criticizing my review. You're just insulting me because it's easier than forming a real argument. I'm asking you nicely, apologize, and we can have an actual conversation. Or don't, and prove that you're exactly what your comment suggests you are, ***. What my comment suggested I was. Some kind of troll? A hater? I wasn't a troll. I was just honest. Blunt. The internet had gotten way too soft if this was what passed for offensive now. I typed. What exactly does my comment suggest I am? Go on. Say it. I'd love to hear your psychological analysis of me based on 3 sentences. You seem to enjoy psychoanalyzing everyone and everything. His reply came faster this time, almost like he'd been waiting. Nidal_97 ***, it suggests you're lonely. It suggests you're unhappy with your own life and you take it out on strangers online because it's the only way you know how to feel superior to anyone. It suggests you probably don't have many real relationships because people and why. Your actual life got tired of being talked to the way you just talked to me. It suggests you're smart enough to know you're being cruel, but not brave enough to stop. And it suggests that deep down, you're waiting for someone to call you out on it and actually mean it. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. My mouth went dry. The worst part wasn't that it was mean. The worst part was that it was accurate. Not the waiting for someone to call you out part. That was psychobabble. But the loneliness, the absence of real relationships, the cruelty masquerading as honesty. I didn't reply. I closed the app. I put my phone face down on the desk. My noodles were cold. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself he was just some random guy on the internet who'd never met me, never would meet me, and whose opinion meant less than nothing. I told myself a lot of things that night, but I didn't apologize. The next morning, the thread had tripled in size. My notifications were a disaster zone. People I'd never heard of were tagging me in comments, calling me everything from the hero this forum needs to a textbook example of toxic gamer culture. Someone had started a poll. Should _X apologize? The yes votes were winning by a landslide. I scrolled through the thread while brushing my teeth, toothpaste foam dripping onto my shirt. Nidal_97 had posted again around 2 a.m., a long, measured response to someone else that didn't mention me at all. It was thoughtful. It was well-researched. It was, I had to admit, actually interesting. The guy knew his stuff. The game wasn't just a haunted vending machine. It was a procedurally generated narrative experience where the vending machine dispensed items that triggered different psychological horror scenarios based on the player's choices. The developer was a former clinical psychologist who'd spent 5 years building the game's branching narrative engine. Nidal_97's review had mapped out the Jungian archetypes embedded in the game's item descriptions and the way the vending machine itself functioned as a symbol of consumer desire and emotional emptiness. I had called this guy pretentious for understanding something I hadn't even bothered to learn about. The toothpaste foam tasted bitter. I should have let it go. I should have apologized, or at least stopped engaging. But I had this thing, this ugly, stubborn thing inside me, that couldn't stand to be wrong. Especially not publicly. Especially not when hundreds of strangers were watching. So I did the worst possible thing. I doubled down. _X***. Look, I get it. You're all very impressed by big words and Jungian analysis. But at the end of the day, it's still a game about buying chips from a ghost machine. You can dress it up in all the academic language you want. It doesn't make the core premise any less ridiculous. And it definitely doesn't make me owe anyone an apology. I said what I said. If you can't handle someone thinking your favorite game is dumb, maybe the internet isn't for you. Asterisk. I posted it and immediately felt sick. This wasn't even about the game anymore. This wasn't about his review or my opinion or anything substantive. This was about my pride. My stupid, fragile, paper-thin pride. Nidal_97's response came within minutes. Nidal_97***, you keep moving the goalposts. First it was about me being pretentious. Now it's about the game's premise being ridiculous. You haven't engaged with a single substantive point I've made. You're not arguing. You're performing. And I'm done asking nicely. Asterisk. I know who you are, Arjun. The blood in my veins turned to ice water. My name. He'd used my name. My real name. Not _X. Not my gamer tag. Not some generic insult. Arjun. I scrolled up frantically, checking every post I'd ever made on that forum. I never used my real name. Never. I was careful about that. My username was meaningless. My profile picture was a default avatar. My bio was empty. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, that connected _X to Arjun Mehta, 23, of 14B Krishna Apartments, Bangalore. Nothing. So how did he know? I deleted the comment. I know. Deleting the comment only made me look guilty. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about optics. I was thinking about the fact that a stranger on the internet had just called me by my legal name on a public forum, and I had no idea how. And my hands were shaking so badly I could barely operate my mouse. I sent Nidal_97 a private message. _X***, how do you know my name? Answer me right now or I'm reporting you for doxing. Asterisk. The reply came almost instantly. Nidal underscore 97 asterisk asterisk, I didn't dox you. I know you because I know you. Your apartment number is 14B. You work at TechSolve Solutions on MG Road. You drive a white 2018 Honda City that you never remember to lock. You order from Swiggy at least 4 times a week, always from the same 3 restaurants. You have a cat named Pixel who you adopted from the shelter on Residency Road last November. You play the piano, badly, usually between 9 and 10 p.m. Your favorite coffee order is a flat white with oat milk and an extra shot. You bite your nails when you're anxious, which is often. You're 5 feet 10 inches and you slouch. You have a scar on your left eyebrow from falling off a bicycle when you were 9. Your mother calls you every Sunday at 7 p.m., and you always let it go to voicemail the first time because you need a minute to prepare yourself for the conversation. Asterisk. Asterisk, I know who you are, Arjun. I've known who you were since about 10 minutes after you posted that first comment. Asterisk. The question is, do you know who I am? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment with all the lights on, my cat Pixel curled on my lap, my laptop open in front of me, and I read that message over and over until the words blurred together. He knew everything. Everything. Details about my life that a stranger couldn't possibly know. The kind of details only someone who had been watching me, really watching me, could have compiled. But the last line was the one that kept echoing in my head. Do you know who I am? I didn't. I had no idea. Nidal underscore 97 was a username, a profile picture of an owl silhouette, a posting history that went back 3 years on that forum. He wrote about games, mostly. Indie horror, psychological thrillers, the occasional retro RPG. His tone was academic but never condescending. He was respected in the community. People cited his reviews like they were legitimate criticism. And somehow, he knew everything about me. I should have called the police. That's what a reasonable person would have done. A stranger online has your name, your address, your work details, your daily routine. That's a threat. That's stalking. That's something you report. But I didn't call the police. Because underneath the fear was something else. Something I didn't want to admit. Curiosity. And guilt. The next day was Sunday. My mother called at 7 p.m., as predicted. I let it go to voicemail, as predicted. Then I spent 20 minutes staring at my phone before calling her back, as predicted. Arjun, Beta, you sound tired, she said. Are you eating properly? Yes, Ma. Are you sleeping properly? Yes, Ma. Have you met anyone nice? Any girls? Any boys? Your father and I don't mind. We just want you to be happy. No, Ma. No one. The conversation lasted exactly 14 minutes, as it always did. I hung up feeling hollow, the way I always did. Pixel meowed at me from the kitchen, demanding dinner. I fed her. I opened Swiggy. I ordered from the same biryani place I always ordered from. Nidal underscore 97 was right about everything. And I hated it. I spent the rest of the night digging. His username appeared on 3 forums, a Letterboxd account, a Goodreads profile, and an abandoned SoundCloud page with exactly 2 followers. The SoundCloud had 1 track, a brief piano piece, melancholic and technically imperfect, titled 3 a.m. in December. I listened to it 4 times. His Letterboxd was meticulously maintained. 537 films logged, each with a thoughtful review. His taste ran toward horror, psychological thrillers, and what he called quiet cinema. Slow, meditative films about ordinary people in extraordinary emotional circumstances. His favorite director was Wong Kar-wai. His favorite film was In the Mood for Love. I had never seen it. His Goodreads was similar. Literary fiction, psychology textbooks, the occasional graphic novel. He'd given 5 stars to something called The Body Keeps the Score and written a review that was half analysis and half personal confession. Asterisk. Reading this book felt like someone finally explaining a language I'd been speaking my whole life without understanding. The chapter on how trauma reshapes the nervous system made me cry in a coffee shop. The barista asked if I was okay. I said yes. I wasn't. But I'm getting there. Asterisk. I closed the browser. Opened it again. Read the review 3 more times. Who was this person? At 11:47 p.m., I sent him another message. 0cool_x ***, I've been reading your posts, your reviews, your Letterboxd, your Goodreads. I spent 3 hours going through everything I could find. I know you like Wong Kar-wai and psychological horror, and you cried reading a book about trauma in a coffee shop. I know you play piano, and you're not very good at it either. I know you're smart and thoughtful and probably a better person than I am, but I still don't know who you actually are. And I still don't understand how you know so much about me. Asterisk. Asterisk, you said you know me. You said I should know you. But I don't. I've been sitting here trying to figure it out, and I can't. So either tell me or don't. But stop being cryptic about it. I'm tired and I'm scared and I think I owe you an apology, but I don't even know who I'm apologizing to. Asterisk. I hit send before I could second guess myself. The reply came 6 minutes later. Nidal_97 asterisk asterisk. Do you remember the coffee shop? The one on Church Street, with the blue door and the mismatched chairs. You used to go there every Thursday after work. You'd sit in the corner by the window and read on your phone and drink your flat white with oat milk and an extra shot. You always left a 20% tip even when the service was bad. You always used the same mug even though there were a dozen others. The barista knew your order by heart. Asterisk. Asterisk, I worked there. For 8 months. I made your coffee every Thursday. You never once looked at me. Not once. You said thank you to the cup, not to me. You were always staring at your phone, typing furiously, probably writing comments like the one you wrote about my review. I wondered sometimes what you were saying, who you were talking to, whether you were kinder to them than you were to strangers on forums. Asterisk. Asterisk, and then you stopped coming. Sometime in February. I don't know why. You just disappeared. And I forgot about you. Mostly, asterisk. Asterisk until you posted that comment. And I recognized your username from a different forum, from a thread about keyboard switches where you'd mentioned your cat's name. And I clicked on your profile. And I remembered. Asterisk. Asterisk, so no, I didn't dox you. I remembered you. Every detail. The scar on your eyebrow. The way you slouch. The Wednesday biryani. The Sunday phone calls with your mother that you always let ring twice. I remembered all of it. Asterisk. Asterisk, because for 8 months, every Thursday from 5:30 to 6:15, I watched you come in and order your coffee and sit in the corner and never look at me. And I wanted you to look at me. Desperately. Asterisk. And now you have. I read the message. Then I read it again. Then I got up and walked to my kitchen and poured myself a glass of water and drank the whole thing standing at the counter, my hands trembling, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. The coffee shop on Church Street. The one with the blue door. Matinee coffee. I'd stopped going in February because my office had shifted to a different part of the city and the commute didn't take me past Church Street anymore. I'd meant to find a new Thursday ritual, a new coffee shop, a new corner to sit in. I never did. The barista. There had been a barista. I was trying to picture him, and nothing. A blur. A vague impression of a person in an apron who handed me coffee. I couldn't remember his face. I couldn't remember his voice. I couldn't remember a single thing about him. And he'd remembered everything about me. We talked for 4 hours that night. His name was Kailash. He was 25. He'd quit the coffee shop in March and was now working as a content writer for a gaming website, which explained the detailed reviews. He lived in Indiranagar, about 20 minutes from my apartment. He had a dog named Kafka who was apparently the world's most neurotic golden retriever. He'd studied psychology in college before dropping out in his 3rd year because he'd realized he was more interested in understanding people through stories than through textbooks. Do you actually think I'm a terrible person? I asked him, sometime around 2 a.m. His reply took longer than the others. Long enough that I started to worry. I think you're lonely, he wrote eventually. I think you're so used to being invisible that you've convinced yourself it's a choice. And I think you use cruelty as armor because it's easier than being honest about how much you want someone to see you. But no, I don't think you're a terrible person. I think you're scared. And I think you're sorry. Even if you can't say it yet. I stared at the screen. I'm sorry, I typed. For the comment. For all of it. For being a jerk on your review. For the things I said. For 8 months of never looking at you. For not remembering your face. I'm sorry. Is that so hard? Yes. Why? Because saying sorry means admitting I was wrong. And I hate being wrong. Everyone hates being wrong. It's not special. I know. I'm not special. I'm just bad at this. At people. At being a person. There was a pause. Then, you're doing fine right now. We exchanged numbers. We switched from forum DMs to WhatsApp. We sent voice notes. I heard his voice for the first time at 3:17 a.m. A low, slightly raspy voice with a trace of an accent I couldn't quite place. He was from Kerala originally, he explained. Moved to Bangalore for college and never left. I can't believe you noticed all those things about me, I said, lying on my bed, phone pressed to my ear. Pixel was curled on my chest, purring. I can't believe I never noticed you. To be fair, you were very committed to not noticing anyone. That's not fair. Is it wrong? No, I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm just telling you what I saw. For what it's worth, I admired you a little. Even when you were being oblivious. You seemed like someone who knew exactly who he was, even if no one else did. I envied that. I didn't know who I was. I still don't. Most people don't. The difference is you're starting to figure it out. We talked until the sun came up. About games and movies and books. About childhoods and parents and the particular loneliness of being 20-something in a city that didn't care whether you lived or died. About how Kailash had started playing piano after his father died, as a way of feeling close to him. About how I'd adopted Pixel after a breakup that had left me so hollow I needed something to take care of, something that needed me, something I couldn't disappoint. I want to see you, Kailash said, as the first light leaked through my curtains. Now. Not now. Now I need to sleep for approximately 12 hours. But soon. This week. If you want. I did want. Desperately. And also I was terrified. Okay, I said. This week. Good night, Arjun. Good night, Kailash. I hung up and lay there in the growing light, Pixel purring on my chest, and felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Maybe. Or something like it. We didn't meet immediately. Life had other plans. His editor dumped a rush assignment on him. A review of a AAA title that had just dropped and needed coverage within 48 hours. My IT job decided to have a crisis involving a server migration that went catastrophically wrong, which meant 12-hour shifts and emergency calls at 3 a.m. But we kept talking. Good morning texts. Good night voice notes. Random observations throughout the day. He sent me a photo of Kafka wearing a ridiculous little raincoat, and I sent him a video of Pixel falling off the couch while trying to catch a fly. He told me about his mother back in Kochi who called him every day without fail. I told him about my father who hadn't called me in 3 years. It's not that he doesn't care, I typed, lying in bed on Wednesday night, 3 days after our first conversation. It's that he doesn't know how. He's not a bad person. He's just emotionally illiterate. Like me. You're not emotionally illiterate, Kailash replied. You're emotionally out of practice. There's a difference. What's the difference? An illiterate person never learned to read. You know how. You've just been avoiding the library. That's a good line. I know. I'm a writer. I laughed out loud, alone in my apartment at midnight, Pixel staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Thursday. 1 week since the comment that started everything. Kailash sent me a message at 5:30 p.m. 1 week ago right now, you were sitting at your desk typing the dumbest thing you've ever written. And 1 week ago right now, you were so mad about a video game review that you memorized a stranger's entire life story. I wasn't mad about the review. Then what were you mad about? He didn't reply for a long time. When he finally did, it was a voice note. I pressed play and heard his voice, softer than usual, almost hesitant. I wasn't mad about the review. I was hurt. Because I'd spent 3 weeks working on something I was proud of, and someone I'd spent 8 months wanting to notice me finally did. And the first thing he said was that I was pretentious and cringe. It felt like, I don't know, like the universe was making a joke at my expense. Like of course the guy I'd been quietly obsessing over for the better part of a year would turn out to be exactly the kind of person who'd hate me on sight. Kailash, it's fine. It's not your fault. You didn't know. You couldn't have known. And honestly, I shouldn't have revealed that I knew all that stuff about you. That was a lot. Looking back, I think I was trying to shock you. To make you feel as exposed as you'd made me feel. That wasn't fair either. You said you weren't mad. I'm not mad. I'm just explaining. This whole thing is weird, Arjun. We met on a forum where I basically threatened to dox you. And now we're sending each other goodnight voice notes. I don't know what this is. Neither do I. But I want to find out. Another pause. I almost didn't go. I stood in front of my mirror for 40 minutes, changing shirts 5 times, running my hands through my hair, practicing sentences I would never actually say. Pixel watched from the bed with the patient, judgmental gaze that only cats possess. What if he's disappointed? I asked her. She blinked. What if I'm disappointing? What if the version of me he built up in his head is better than the real thing? What if I open my mouth and the first thing that comes out is something mean and stupid and I prove that the person who wrote that comment is exactly who I am. Pixel yawned. Right? I'm overthinking this. Thanks. I wore the first shirt I tried on. I left my apartment. I got in my Honda City, the one I always forgot to lock, and I drove to Church Street. Matinee Coffee looked exactly the same. The blue door with its chipped paint, the mismatched chairs, the warm yellow lights spilling onto the sidewalk. I parked across the street and sat in my car for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, telling myself to just open the door and walk inside. I thought about all the Thursdays, all the flat whites, all the hours I'd spent in that corner, staring at my phone, never once looking up. All the times Kailash had made my coffee, handed it to me, waited for me to notice him. How many times had he practiced what to say? How many times had he chickened out, just like I was chickening out now? I got out of the car. The bell above the door chimed. The smell hit me first, coffee and cinnamon and something faintly floral. Then the warmth. Then the sight of him. He was behind the counter, wearing a black apron over a faded gray t-shirt, his dark hair falling across his forehead in a way that looked effortlessly perfect. He was taller than I'd imagined, or maybe it was just the way he stood, straight-backed, confident, at ease in his body. He was making a drink, his hands moving with practiced precision, steam rising from the espresso machine. And then he looked up, and he saw me, and he smiled. It was a small smile, tentative, almost shy, nothing like the sharp, articulate presence he'd been online. This was someone different, someone softer, someone who was just as nervous as I was. Arjun, he said. Kailash, you're early. By 4 minutes. I know. I was counting. He finished making the drink. Not for a customer, it turned out, but for me. A flat white with oat milk and an extra shot. He handed it to me across the counter, his fingers brushing mine for just a fraction of a second. I don't actually work here anymore, he said. I just asked the owner if I could borrow the counter for dramatic effect. And he said yes. He said it was the most romantic thing he'd ever heard, and if I didn't invite him to the wedding, he'd never forgive me. I choked on my coffee. Kailash's smile widened. Relax. I'm kidding. Mostly. He untied his apron, hung it on a hook behind the counter, and came around to where I was standing. We were the same height, I realized. Eye to eye, neither of us looking away. Hi, he said. Hi. You look exactly the same, except more nervous. I am more nervous. I've never done this before. Done what? Apologized in person. Kailash tilted his head slightly. You already apologized. Like, dozens of times. Over text. That's not the same. That's typing words on a screen. Anyone can do that. I wanted to say it out loud. To your face. I took a breath. Set down my coffee. Looked him directly in the eyes. I'm sorry. For the comment. For calling your review pretentious and cringe. For insulting you without reading a single word of what you wrote. For 8 months of sitting in this coffee shop and never once looking at the person who made my drink. For being so wrapped up in my own misery that I couldn't see someone who was right there, trying to reach me. I'm sorry for all of it. Silence. Then Kailash did something I wasn't expecting. He laughed. Not a mean laugh. A soft, disbelieving laugh, his shoulders relaxing, his eyes crinkling at the corners. You practiced that, didn't you? 40 minutes in the mirror. My cat judged me. Your cat has excellent judgment. She does. So what's the verdict? Do I pass? Did I do it right? Kailash was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm, slightly calloused, and his grip was gentle. You passed, he said. But there's something I need to tell you before this goes any further. We sat at my old corner table. The one by the window. The one where I'd spent so many hours staring at my phone instead of the world around me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Kailash wrapped both hands around his cup of black coffee and didn't look at me for a long moment. The things I told you, he said. About watching you. About memorizing details. About wanting you to notice me. That all sounds romantic, right? Like something out of a movie. The quiet barista with the secret crush. The oblivious customer. The dramatic reveal. It does sound like a movie, I admitted. I was thinking in the mood for love, actually. That got a small smile out of him. Of course you looked that up. Of course I did. But here's the thing. His smile faded. It wasn't romantic. Not really. It was compulsive. Obsessive, maybe. I didn't just notice things about you, Arjun. I cataloged them. I wrote them down. I had a notebook where I kept track of your routines, your moods, the things that made you smile, the things that made you frown at your phone. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just interested, curious. But the truth is, it was a coping mechanism. A coping mechanism for what? He took a sip of his coffee. Winced. Too hot. My father died 2 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. I was in my third year of college, and suddenly the world didn't make sense anymore. Everything I'd been studying, psychology, human behavior, the patterns that explain why people do what they do, none of it helped. There's no pattern for grief. No framework that makes it bearable. You just survive. Minute by minute. Day by day. He set down his cup. So I dropped out. I got the job here. I told myself I was taking a break, figuring things out, but really I was just hiding. And then you started coming in. Every Thursday. Same time. Same order. Same table. And you were so contained. So consistent. In a world that had become completely chaotic, you were the one predictable thing. I could count on you. Not in a real way. Not in a way that mattered. But in a way that helped. You were my Thursday anchor. My proof that the world still had patterns I could trust. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. The notebook started as a way to track my own thoughts. Journaling, basically. But it turned into something else. I started writing about you. Your habits. Your expressions. The way you'd tap your fingers on the table when you were thinking. The way you'd smile at your phone sometimes. A real smile. Not the polite one you gave to strangers. I convinced myself I was just being observant. A writer's instinct. But I knew, somewhere underneath, that it was more than that. That it was unhealthy. That I was projecting onto a stranger because it was easier than dealing with my own grief. When did it stop? I asked. What? The notebook. The tracking. When did it stop? Kailash looked at me with something like surprise. How do you know it stopped? Because you said I had a notebook. Past tense. And because the person I've been talking to for the last 4 days doesn't seem like someone who's still doing that. He seems like someone who's done some work. Who's been through something. Who came out the other side. Kailash was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his bag and pulled out a small, battered notebook. Black cover. Worn edges. February, he said. It stopped in February. When you stopped coming. He slid the notebook across the table. I looked at it, but didn't pick it up. The week you disappeared, I panicked. I thought something had happened to you. I actually went to your apartment building. Just stood outside, trying to figure out if your car was there. That's when I realized this wasn't healthy. This wasn't curiosity or a crush or whatever I'd been telling myself. This was me using a stranger as a life raft. And when the stranger disappeared, I had to learn to swim on my own. So you got help? So I got help. Therapy. Twice a week for the last 5 months. It's been hard, but good. I'm still working through things. The grief. The anxiety. The obsessive patterns. But I'm better. Not fixed. Better. He met my eyes. When I recognized your username on that forum, when I realized who you were, all of that came flooding back. The anger. The hurt. The weird possessiveness. Like, how dare you? Someone I'd spent months silently obsessing over. Insult me without even knowing who I was. That's why I sent you that message. All those details. I wasn't trying to be romantic. I was trying to hurt you. To make you feel exposed and vulnerable the way you'd made me feel. That wasn't fair, and it wasn't okay, and I'm sorry. The coffee shop was quiet. The owner was behind the counter, pretending not to watch us. Outside, Church Street was doing its evening thing. Traffic, pedestrians, the distant sound of someone playing a guitar. I picked up the notebook, flipped through the pages. There were entries going back to last June. His handwriting was small and precise. Some entries were just a sentence. Others were paragraphs. Asterisk Thursday, June 14th. He came in today with a bandage on his left hand. Cut himself cooking? Fighting? I'll never know. He seemed distracted. Ordered as usual. Tipped 25% instead of 20%. Left his napkin folded into a tiny origami shape. A bird, maybe. Or a failed attempt at one. Asterisk. Asterisk Thursday, July 19th. He smiled at his phone today. A real smile. Whoever was on the other end, they made him happy. I felt jealous. Of a complete stranger. What is wrong with me? Asterisk. Asterisk Thursday, September 6th. Rain. He came in soaked. No umbrella. His hair was plastered to his forehead, and he was laughing at himself. First time I've heard him laugh. It was unexpected. Higher than I'd imagined. Bright. I almost introduced myself. Almost. Then a customer called me over, and the moment passed. Maybe next week. Asterisk. Asterisk Thursday, January 31st. Last entry. He didn't come today. Maybe he's sick. Maybe he's traveling. Maybe he's gone for good. I don't know why it matters so much. Asterisk. Asterisk update, February 7th. Still hasn't come back. I went to his building. Stood outside for 20 minutes. His car was there. He's fine. Just not here. Not coming back. This is a wake-up call. I need help. I'm making an appointment tomorrow. Asterisk. I closed the notebook. My hands were shaking. You didn't hurt me, I said. When you sent that message. You scared me, yes. But you didn't hurt me. If anything, you woke me up. Made me realize how invisible I'd let myself become. How I was treating people. How I was treating myself. I slid the notebook back across the table. I don't know if this is going to work. Whatever this is, we're both kind of a mess. I gestured vaguely at the notebook, at myself, at the space between us. But I want to try. If you do. Kailash looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached across the table and took my hand again. I do, he said. I really do. We left the coffee shop together. Walked down Church Street in the gathering dusk, past the bookstores and the record shops and the little hole-in-the-wall restaurants that had been there since before either of us was born. Kailash pointed out his favorite places, the chai stand where the owner knew his name, the used bookstore where he'd found a first edition of Midnight's Children for 50 rupees, the alley where a stray cat had once followed him home and became his dog's unlikely best friend. This is Kafka, he said, showing me a photo on his phone. The golden retriever was sprawled on a couch with the aforementioned stray cat curled on his chest. That's Rumi. She showed up one day and never left. Kafka was terrified of her for about 2 hours and then decided she was his baby. They're adorable. They're a menace. Rumi steals my socks. Kafka just watches and wags his tail. He's an accomplice. I can't wait to meet them. Kailash stopped walking. Turned to face me. You want to? Meet them? Is that too fast? I don't know what the rules are here. I've never done this before. Neither have I. The rules are whatever we decide they are. Then yes. I want to meet your dog and your cat, and I want to see your apartment, and I want to watch In the Mood for Love with you because apparently it's a masterpiece and I've never seen it. And I want to hear you play piano badly because I play badly too and maybe we can be bad at it together. Kailash stared at me. Then he laughed. The bright, surprised laugh I'd read about in his notebook, the one I'd never heard in person until now. You're not at all what I expected, he said. What did you expect? Someone harder, more defensive, someone who'd run the moment I showed him the notebook. I thought about it. Running. I do that. I'm good at it. But I'm trying not to be. Not anymore. That's very brave. That's very generous. I think it's more stubbornness than bravery. Same thing sometimes. We ended up at his apartment. It was in Indiranagar, on the 3rd floor of an old building with no elevator and a stairwell that smelled like incense and old wood. His door was painted a deep, forest green. There was a welcome mat that said, "Come back," with a warrant. I didn't buy that, he said, catching my look. Previous tenant. I kept it because I thought it was funny. It is funny. I know. Inside, the apartment was small but warm. Books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on the floor, balanced on the arm of the couch. A keyboard in the corner, covered with a thin layer of dust. A kitchen that was clean but cluttered with tea canisters and spice jars. And on the couch, a golden retriever who lifted his head when we entered, assessed me with a single lazy glance, and went back to sleep. That's Kafka, Kailash said. He's very discerning. Clearly. And that's Rumi. He pointed at the top of a bookshelf, where a small black cat was watching me with unblinking yellow eyes. She's less discerning. She'll love you if you give her treats. Do you have treats? In the kitchen, top drawer, left of the sink. I found the treats. Rumi materialized at my feet the moment I opened the drawer, purring like a motorboat. I fed her 3 pieces before Kailash gently took the bag from my hands. You'll spoil her. That was the plan. She already runs this household. Don't make it worse. We ordered dinner. Thai food from a place Kailash swore was the best in Bangalore, and he wasn't wrong. We ate on his couch, Kafka's head resting on my foot, In the Mood for Love playing on his laptop. The movie was beautiful, slow and aching and full of longing, and somewhere around the midpoint, Kailash's hand found mine in the dark. Neither of us said anything. We just sat there, hands intertwined, watching 2 people on screen fall in love in the most restrained, heartbreaking way possible. This is the most depressing movie I've ever seen, I whispered. It's also the most romantic. How can something be both? That's the question, isn't it? How can anything be both? I turned to look at him. His face was lit by the glow of the laptop screen, his eyes dark and unreadable. I don't want to be like them, I said. The characters. I don't want to spend years circling each other, too afraid to say what we mean. I've already wasted so much time being afraid. So what do you want? I want to stay? Tonight. If that's okay. Not for. I just want to be here. With you. I want to wake up and have coffee and talk about stupid things and figure out what this is without any of the pretending. Kailash was quiet for a moment. On screen, Tony Leung whispered a secret into a stone wall. Okay, he said. Stay.
I woke up to the smell of coffee and the weight of a golden retriever on my legs. For a moment, I was disoriented. This wasn't my ceiling. These weren't my sheets. That wasn't my alarm clock. And then I remembered. The coffee shop. The notebook. The movie. Falling asleep on Kailash's couch with my head on his shoulder, too tired and too comfortable and too emotionally wrung out to go home. Kailash was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into two mismatched mugs. He was wearing a faded t-shirt and sweatpants, his hair a disaster, his eyes still heavy with sleep. He looked up when I shuffled in and smiled. Morning. Morning. What time is it? Almost 9. I let you sleep. You looked like you needed it. I did. Thank you. He handed me a mug. Flat white with oat milk. I didn't have an extra shot, sorry. I can run to the store. It's perfect. It's exactly perfect. We stood in his kitchen, drinking coffee, Kafka weaving between our legs looking for dropped food. Rumi was on the windowsill, watching birds. The morning light was soft and golden. It felt, impossibly, like the beginning of something. I should probably go home, I said eventually. Pixel needs to be fed. And I have work. Same. Deadlines. The review I was working on is due today, and I still need to edit the last section. The review that started all of this? His expression flickered. A different one. That review. I pulled it down. What? When? Last night. After you fell asleep. I couldn't stop thinking about how everything started because of something I wrote. And the things you said, about it being pretentious, you weren't entirely wrong. I did overthink it. I did try too hard to sound smart. I was writing to impress people instead of writing to communicate. So I pulled it. I'm going to rewrite it. Kailash, you didn't have to do that. I know. But I wanted to. It felt like closing a loop. Or opening a new one. You know, the version of me that wrote that review was the version of me that was still hiding. Still obsessed with control and perception and being right all the time. And the version of me that's standing in this kitchen, making you coffee, hoping you'll come back tonight, that version doesn't need to be right anymore. He just wants to be present. I set down my coffee, crossed the kitchen in 2 steps, pulled him into a hug. He stiffened for a moment, surprised, and then relaxed into it. His arms came around me. His chin rested on my shoulder. He smelled like coffee and sleep and something clean, like laundry detergent. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For not giving up on me. For sending that message instead of just blocking me. For being braver than I was. Arjun. He pulled back just enough to look at me. You showed up. At the coffee shop. After everything. You apologized. You listened. You stayed. That's not nothing. That's everything. And then he kissed me. It was soft. Tentative. A question more than a statement. I answered by kissing him back, my hands fisting in the fabric of his t-shirt, pulling him closer. Kafka barked. Rumi meowed. Neither of us cared. When we finally broke apart, breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, Kailash laughed. What? I asked. I just remembered. I told the owner of Matinee Coffee that I'd invite him to the wedding. Oh God. Too soon. Ask me again in a year. His smile was the brightest thing in the room. Deal. We moved in together in September. My apartment first, then a bigger one in December, a 2-bedroom in Koramangala with a balcony and enough space for 2 people, 2 cats, and 1 very neurotic golden retriever. Pixel and Rumi took approximately 3 weeks to stop hissing at each other. Now they're inseparable. Kafka just seems happy to have more people to lean on. Kailash got a staff writer position at a major gaming publication. His reviews are still thoughtful, still detailed, but now they have a warmth and humor that weren't there before. He told me once that I helped him stop taking himself so seriously. I quit my IT job and went back to school. Graphic design. It turns out I'm good at it. It turns out I like making things instead of just criticizing them. Who knew? My mother loves Kailash. My father still doesn't call, but I'm learning to be okay with that. Some patterns are harder to break than others. On the 1-year anniversary of the comment that started everything, Kailash took me back to Matinee Coffee. The owner remembered us. He brought us free pastries and winked at us from behind the counter. We sat at the corner table, my old table, and ordered our usual drinks. 1 year, Kailash said. Can you believe it? No. It feels like both 5 minutes and a lifetime. That's how you know it's real. Time gets weird when you're happy. Did you just make that up? Maybe. Do you like it? I love it. He reached across the table and took my hand. The way he'd done a year ago in this exact spot. The way he'd done 1,000 times since. I have a question, he said. Okay. Remember when I said ask me again in a year? My heart stopped. Kailash. He didn't get down on one knee. That wasn't us. That wasn't our style. Instead, he pulled a small black box from his pocket and set it on the table between us. Plain. Simple. No grand gestures. I'm not asking you to marry me, he said. Not yet. I'm asking if you want to keep going. Together. For another year. And another one after that. And however many come after. I opened the box. Inside was a simple silver ring engraved with a single word. Stay. I looked at him. The man who had been invisible to me for 8 months. The man who had seen every part of me, even the ugly parts, and decided to stay anyway. Yes, I said. Yes, I want to keep going. For all the years. Every single one. Kailash smiled. That bright, surprised smile I'd first heard about in a notebook and now got to see every single day. Good, he said. Because I already paid for the next round of coffee. I laughed. He laughed. Outside, Church Street hummed with life. The world kept spinning. And in a little coffee shop with a blue door and mismatched chairs, 2 people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way possible sat together and planned a future. Not their first one. Not their best one. Just the one they'd chosen. Together.